Welcome back, fight fans. We're back one more time. It's UFC 299. It's pay-per-view week. Super stoked to be back one last time. Yes, this is going to be my last time, probably for the rest of the year. Maybe a little bit longer. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm going to be working on the video game that I've been working on for the past year. I just want to dedicate way more time to it because this takes up so much time and it hasn't, been taking off as much as I'd like it, even with these new super cool graphics and everything like that. But I do love this so much, and I love talking to you guys when I do have people talking to me. So I do want to come back to it eventually, but won't be for the rest of the year. So this will be the last one for this year. Amazing card to end off on. I just couldn't do 3 out of 4 weeks for UFC Vegas for the next month all the way to UFC 300. I just couldn't put myself through that. It just wasn't going to work out like that. There was no way I was going to do 3 more UFC Vegas cards like that. So this is the perfect way to end it off. UFC 299. I can't wait. This card looks absolutely amazing. But before we get started, my mouth is so dry from lunch. I had a grilled cheese and it was very dry. I need to take some water. I literally had half of that all at once. My goodness. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's move over to the other screen, to the bets. I'm assuming this is still going to work. I had to rush through this. I was watching the PFL earlier today. My God, can you believe it? Cedric Doumbé loses via a splinter. My God, who would have thought? Anyway, let's get right on into it. It's the best bets from last week's card. UFC Vegas 87, Rosenstrike, Gaziev. I'm still going to go with Gaziev because it sounds better. So we'll jump right on into it. How did we do? Not very well. I mean, what the fuck was going on with Basharat? I still cannot believe that he lost, but we'll get into that in a second. So the triple play, that ended up being Umar, Klein, and Urseg. I didn't have odds for this last week because they didn't have Klein up yet on the betting sites because that was such a late notice fight. But we did end up getting the odds in. Can't remember what it was, but it is factored into these numbers, so don't worry about the math. It all works out. And with that, we did get a win, which brings us to 8-9. For parlays, I guess that's all right, but still not as high as I would have liked. But, we did make up some ground, and we're 0.18 units down. So just the tiniest little bit in the red. I mean, it's basically even. That is even. I mean, let's be real. So we did it. We brought it back up a little bit. Then we, of course, had the Grand Slam. I should have explained. I'm just so excited for this, for talking about UFC 299 that I forgot to explain what all this is. Triple play, of course, is where I pick 3 legs of the people that I gave the edge. And the Grand Slam is, of course, 4 fighters that I gave the edge. And we were about to have a perfect week. And then Basharat loses it. I cannot believe he lost that fight. I truly cannot. I don't know what was going on there. I cannot believe it. I honestly can't. And he was, of course, in that Grand Slam, along with Umar once again, Mokaev, which was another pretty close one, and then Petrino. So that ended up, of course, being a loss. Brutal. So that brings us to 8-9 there as well. So same record as the 4-leg. My goodness, now my nose is running all over the place still. Holy shit. I'm falling apart over here. 8-9 over there. Which brings us still in the profit, though, in the green, to 2.03 units up. So we're still in the green in the parlays. Yeah, but I mean, if Basharat would have gotten the win, we would have been way in the green all around, especially in the parlays, but especially with the sniper pick. I mean, you'll see later, it's not looking good for the sniper picks right now. Then, of course, we had the top dog, and that ended up being Radjabov. I told you guys, you know, I'm good at picking the underdogs when I pick the close ones and all that. When there's a pretty clear choice, like, okay, I do think this guy should be able to win. And Radjabov was one of those guys. It was a pretty good close fight. Pretty wild first round. Radjabov probably won the first. That's what I thought anyway. Stumbled him a couple of times, got some takedowns. Then the second round, Al Sawadi won with his output. So I thought it was 1-1. Then in the third round, Radjabov gets a knockdown and gets a brutal KO anyway. So I thought he was going to win by decision anyway, but he ends up getting the finish anyway. So another win for the top dog. And that brings us all the way to 11-6. Can you believe that? 11-6 for picking underdogs. And I mean, there were a couple on there where we knew we probably weren't going to get the win. I mean, especially in Mexico with Lacerda. I mean, that was definitely a long shot. But, you know, reined it back in with Radjabov, and hopefully we can get another one to close that out this week with $2.99. Then, of course, we finish... Oh, actually, of course, got to go through the profit. 6.4 units up. I mean, that is, of course, still the cash cow of the show, is the top dog for sure. I mean, there's nothing even close to that. Then we go to the sniper pick, which, I mean, in general, not bad, 12-5. But the loss... Oh, Basharat just completely screwed us over. Wow. I mean, I think he was the only big favorite. I'm pretty sure he was the only big favorite on the card who lost. And to be honest, I kind of thought actually Basharat won 29-28. It was close. And by the way, I did say this was going to be probably close because of the way that the fight IQ of Zahabi and then the style of Basharat. I did say that it was probably going to be close, but I thought there was no way Basharat was losing it, and then, you know, he was going to get a 30-27, but it was going to be pretty clear who was going to win. That's what I thought was going to happen, and I just didn't think he was capable of losing a fight like this. Wow. I mean, I truly cannot believe that. I thought Zahabi won the second round, and that was it. I kind of thought Basharat got 1 and 3, but like I said, it was super close. I was a little surprised that it wasn't a split, that it was just a straight up unanimous. And especially when I heard it was a unanimous, I was like, oh, okay. So Basharat got this, I'm pretty sure. And yeah. Didn't happen. So, wow. Terrible way to close this out, of course, with the sniper pick. I mean, you know, I'm assuming that we're going to win the sniper pick this week and we can rein it back in with a little bit of green. But yeah, brutal. I cannot believe that Basharat lost that fight. I cannot believe it. I mean, he's a sniper pick for a reason. I picked these people because I think that there's no way that they're going to lose. Unbelievable that he lost this, which of course means the sniper pick is tanked completely. I mean, and no joke, if Basharat would have won this fight, which he should have, we would have been in the green for the sniper pick, which means we actually would have been in the green for 3 out of the 4, and then of course having the even in the triple play. So we would have been way in the green overall, and we would have had green in, like I said, 3 out of the 4 categories, you know, with the exception, of course, of the triple play. Instead, that's not what happened. And if you do the math, I didn't take the fireworks away, but, you know, just add insult to injury, why not? We are now in the red. Fuck, in the red at 0.32 units. I mean, really, it's basically even, but still, huge, colossal failure because of Basharat. If I chose anybody else except for Basharat, or if Basharat won like he should have, or if the judges would have even scored the fight, you know, like I think they should have, but you never know. It was close. Then we would have been way in the green. And I'm not joking. I think we would have been at about 9 units up, 10 units up, somewhere around there. So massive, massive swing because of that Basharat loss. But we move on to UFC 299. And hopefully, well, I'm pretty sure we can rein it back in this week because there are some good looking picks this week. I'm very excited about UFC 299. So check that one out. But first, before we go into that, we go into the recap of the Edge for last week, UFC Vegas 87. It's the recap. Let's get right on into it. The Edge, of course, is where I pick who I think should win the fights. Usually pretty close. Well, actually, I'm always pretty close. But obviously, Basharat lost. So, I mean, there is that one in there. We know that one already. But let's get into the rest of them. This, of course, opened up with Klein. I was considering picking him as the sniper pick, but I didn't have any odds, so that didn't help. So I didn't really want to pick that if I didn't have any odds. But I was definitely considering picking that, which is why he was in both of the parlays, because he was, I ranked them from A through F. A was Basharat, B was Klein. Anyway, Cunningham landed a couple of good strikes here and there, but it was a massacre just like I said it was going to be. Just picked him apart, landed a nasty body kick to get the TKO. Absolute dominance. I don't really know why they would have picked Cunningham to come. I really don't, because now they have to give him another fight because he took this one, and he's just going to lose that one again the same way. So it's kind of like, I don't really know why you would do that, but hey, whatever. I mean, he's going to get paid well, so good for him, but he's going to get brutally beaten again, and maybe even again a third time. So that was a good way to start, 1-0. Then we go to 2-0 with Christian Leroy Duncan. Another massacre, honestly. Ribeiro barely landed a strike. I think he literally landed just a few strikes the whole fight. Duncan was just throwing wild stuff, as always. Then he took him down for the ground and pound in the second to get the easy win there, too. So easy 2-0 start to the night. And then, of course, we run into Basharat. Holy fucking shit. Terrible. Yeah, we already talked about this in the best bet segment, so we'll just move on. I still can't believe he lost. Again, if you didn't watch the best bets, I thought he won 29-28. I thought he won the first and the third, but I digress. Either way, he really should have won no matter what. I mean, that's absolutely insane that he blew that. So we move on. Anders up next. As expected, Pickett was backing up quite a bit. Not great for the judges, obviously. In the judges' eyes, I should say, obviously. So Anders, just winning with activity and pace, pressure. I mean, it was actually exactly what I said was going to happen. So good way to open the night. I mean, 3-1. Just should have been 4-0, but again, I'm not going to let that go. I'm really not, because that was insane. Urseg after that. Exciting fight while it lasted. Schnell landed a couple of good ones in the middle, but Urseg dominated and ended up getting a clean KO. Just a nasty but beautiful KO. Incredible stuff from Urseg. Oh man, what a guy. I love this guy, I really do. He's so funny too, and then when you look at him and he's fighting, he's just like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. You want to fight? Oh, okay. That's just what he looks like. Oh, yeah. Got dropped. Oh, yeah. Next up, It was Umar. And there were, my God, the first 30 seconds. I think we were all like, oh my God, we're all going to lose all of our money here. Umar gets dropped in the first few seconds of the fight, almost loses, but then dominates with wrestling the entire rest of the fight. So after that, pretty obvious win. But yeah, those first 30 seconds, wow. That was scary, which is why I don't put people like this, you know, especially with debuts. You never know how people are going to be in there, because Umar wouldn't know what to expect either. You never know what can happen with stuff like these, so I don't like putting these too high up in the parlays. But still got the win anyway, which is 4, I believe, what is it, 4, 5-1, 4-1, something at this point. We got the final count at the end, but, you know, just trying to keep track along in the meantime. I think it's 5-1 now. And then we had Mokaev, of course. Very, very close fight. Perez grappling pretty well. Shockingly, it was actually kind of a reversal, because Perez was the one that was actually wrestling and grappling really well, and Mokaev was the one that was striking really well. Never would have seen that one coming, and I don't think anybody else was seeing that one coming either. Really weird. Would have never thought that was going to happen. But I wasn't too surprised that it did end up being that close, because we haven't seen Perez fight as much. You know, being finished so quickly by, can't remember who the other one was, but Pantoja was the one I remember always, because that's still ingrained in my mind as the first time I realized Pantoja is probably the best submission artist in the entire UFC. That was the second that I realized that, was when I saw him do that to Perez. Anyway, but yeah, Mokaev gets it done, 29-28. Very, very close, though. I was getting worried. I really was. I thought he was potentially losing the fight. I really did. But he gets the win, too. So 3-0 on this page. Amazing, amazing stuff. Then we move on to the next one, and that was Petrino in the co-main. Pretty slow fight, honestly. Petrino landed harder, grappled him in the third. That was kind of it, though. It wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, pretty slow fight, but he did get the win. And then we saw, of course, Tyson Pedro retiring like that, which is sad to see, but you know what? Good for him, because I don't really think it was going to get much better. Yeah. So, yeah. I hope he does well in the future, you know, being a coach or whatever, or doing whatever he wants to do. But yeah, Petrino gets the win as well. And then... Oh, that was terrible. Let's go back. Can we go back here? Yeah, there we go. So I did that part wrong. I want to see my notes again. It was Gaziev who I picked in the main event. I told you I didn't want to make the pick in the main event. I wanted to give it an even because I really couldn't tell what was going to happen. But I went with Gaziev. You know, I'll take the L, but whatever, you know. But, and you know what? The first round, I was like, okay, I think I made the right choice. But then, you know, slowly faded and then started to get picked apart. And then one of the weirder stoppages I've ever seen where it kind of just looked like he just gave up. Like, that's kind of the impression that I got from Gaziev, is he kind of just gave up. So yeah, this is literally why I make these ones even all the time, even, because I mean it was that close, because Gaziev wins the first, and then who was going to expect that he was literally just going to quit halfway through? Was he losing after that? Yes, of course he was losing, but again, it's just, you never know how people with those few fights. It was his second fight in the UFC. This is why I don't make picks like this. They're not good bets. That's why you go for the underdog in that situation, which is what I would have said, which is what I was saying, actually. You go even so you don't lose on the record here for the edge. And then, of course, because I pick even, then you go for the underdog in the bets. Everybody wins. But instead, main event had to make the pick, and we lose. But that's okay. That's okay. That at least was a fair loss. The Basharat one kills me inside. Kills me inside. But that brings us to an overall record of 31-15, which is pretty good because, I mean, we were actually at an even record for actually, no, it wasn't an even record. We kept getting even records, but we were always in the, in the green per se. But with 3 massive weeks in a row, which was what I was expecting every week, to be honest, is to have weeks like this where I only get 1, maybe 2 wrong. That's what I was expecting from this segment. The first month, though, did not work out like that. But now you can see what I was getting at. That yes, okay, yes, I will usually get only one or 2 wrong, and that'll be it. That's usually what happens. So that's why I was getting so miffed, let's say, in that first month. But again, turn it around, 31-15. Amazing. That's, well, not amazing. I still want it to be a lot higher, but I'll take it. I'll take it. That's a solid 67, 68%, somewhere around there. It's 2/3, basically. So, not bad. But still not great. Either way, we move on. We're talking UFC 299 now, of course. It's O'Malley, it's Chito Vera, UFC 299. Let's get right on into it. It opens up with, to be honest, the only fight on the entire card that I'm not really too interested in, to be honest. The other ones, the entire rest of the card, absolutely insane fights. This one, you couldn't really care less. It's Wood, it's Morose, it's flyweight. Let's get right on into it. Oh, by the way, though, interesting fact, this is actually a rematch, and I didn't even know this until last night when I was scrolling through the records of both of them, and I saw that in 2014 they fought. I haven't heard anybody even say, oh, this was a rematch and blah, blah, blah. I haven't heard that from anybody at all. I didn't know this was a rematch until I saw that. But yeah, and what happened in the first one is actually kind of what I'm thinking could happen in this one, but it's definitely closer now than it was before. Morose got a submission back in 2014. So that's what happened the first time. But what's going to happen this time? Let's see. It's Wood. So some pretty technical, I mean, what she is a Muay Thai kickboxer. So she does have some very technical kickboxing. Does have some quick strikes. Mixes it up well. Punches, kicks, and all that. Not a whole lot of power. Like, really not much power at all. Especially now that, of course, she's kind of getting up there in age. But still very fast and still a great striker, though. The grappling, though, being a Muay Thai fighter, still just never really got that great at the grappling. She was taken down fairly easily by all of her recent opponents, except for Luana Carolina. She didn't quite take her down as much, but still, it ended up being a split decision, so that was even a pretty close fight. I think it was mostly because of those clinches along the fence. I can't remember now right off the top of my head, and I didn't write it in my notes, but that's okay. But she does have pressure going for her. She always is walking forward, keeps a very high pace too, I would say. Did start to slow down, though, in the last fight. Could be an age thing there, because I don't remember her really doing that years ago, but she did start to slow down in the last fight or two, so that could happen again. But normally, heavy pressure, good pace, good kickboxing. And she's at plus 175 right now, which, I mean, now that I know it's a rematch and Morose won the first time, it definitely makes a lot more sense as to why this is more one-sided. But yeah, now we will see about Morose. Had a close fight with Jennifer Maia. I don't remember if that was her last fight, but I think it was. Yeah, and I mean, we know how good Jennifer Maia is, and that was a pretty close fight, so that is pretty impressive. The grappling is her main thing. Okay wrestling, good against the fence, though. That's her main thing, is clinch against the fence, takedown from the fence, pushing into the fence, everything to do with the fence. And great submissions. I mean, she had a pretty nasty submission there against Agapova. And she does have some other submissions on the record as well, including over Wood. And to be honest, the striking wasn't terrible, but it wasn't that great. So it was kind of in the middle. I didn't want to give it a red. Definitely didn't want to say well-rounded. So I'm just going to say it here as just a side point. Then the pace, though, kind of a fairly low pace. Not like crazy low, but, you know, lower than her opponents most of the time. I mean, this is flyweight, it's flyweight. So, you know, these ladies do keep a high pace usually. Moreau's not one of those people. That's all. But the cardio, though, I haven't seen her slow down at all. Even against Maya. Maya was outpacing her quite a bit, but she never got tired or slowed down. That's just the way that she fights. She just doesn't have much of a pace, that's all. But the cardio is great. And she's always in the fight. So even in the third round against Maya, she was still in the fight, still doing stuff to try and win the fight. So always in there. And minus 225 because of all that. Probably because of the grappling style, and then of course because she did beat Wood the first time. But who is going to win this time? Very close on paper. I mean, Wood kind of going downhill a little bit after almost getting that title shot against Valentina. Moreau's kind of just staying, you know, that 10 to 15 range. Like, she's not bad. She's kind of just there. She's not going up. She's not going down. She's kind of just staying in that range. Kind of reminds me of Neil Magny a little bit, but far less active. But yeah, so, you know, Wood could get a decision with her pace and her striking. Moreau's could get a sub or maybe a decision with the grappling. It's all pretty close, which is why I'm giving it an even here. You know, I could have gone with Moreau's because she won the last one, but she really hasn't been active. So that is a problem. And again, like I said, Wood seems to be going downhill. Hasn't been great at grappling, but Moreau's isn't super active. So if Wood just shuts down most of the takedowns and just gets her kickboxing going, she'll win the decision. So it really could go either way this time. I would say it's probably going to be a pretty tough decision to score unless Moreau's can get a sub again. That's what I think is going to be happening here. We move on. CJ Vergara, Asu Almabayev, and it is flyweight. Back in the flyweight. CJ Vergara, that was the insane fight. His last fight was that insane one against Daniel Lacerda that we talked about, of course, a couple weeks ago. And that was one of his W's. Another one was Clayson Rodriguez. He beat him. Beat Vinicius Salvador. Oh, Vinicius Salvador was actually his last fight. Won that one as well. All three, well, actually, Rodriguez is a pretty good name to have. Lacerda, Salvador, you know, these aren't super elite top guys. And other than that, he did lose the other two. He lost to Ode Osborne, lost to Tatsuro Taira, so he's 3-2. You know, nothing super impressive quite yet. Boxing. He has very good boxing. Crisp boxing, great power, not a lot of kicks, and that's why I say boxing and not striking. Doesn't really have very many kicks. It's really just the hands. The wrestling has been a problem, though, from what I've seen. Was dominated by Taira in wrestling. He did get a reversal with some good BJJ, and that's why I didn't write grappling, because he seems to have okay BJJ, but not necessarily the wrestling. So that is something to look out for, especially in this matchup. He is very tough. I mean, that Daniel Lacerda fight was absolute insanity. To me, that could have been fight of the year. Yeah, but it probably had to be longer to get fight of the year. but definitely considered it, especially even for round of the year. I mean, it was like truly insane stuff to watch. Definitely top 5 fights of the year for sure. And he got 10-8'd in the first round and then came back, won in the second. So if that doesn't say tough, I don't know what does, because if you watch the fight, there's no doubting that toughness. Insane. And actually, he got hit pretty hard by Salvador as well. And he got through that one as well. And he seems to have good cardio. So just all around a pretty durable fighter. But he's at plus 300 right now. And there's a good reason for that. Because on the other side, it's Asu Almabayev. I believe he's something like 18-1 or something like that. I didn't write it down in my notes, but it's something to that effect. Debuted in his last fight, got a submission win against Ode Osborne. And if you remember, CJ Vergara lost to Ode Osborne. And his main thing is the grappling. He's a fantastic wrestler. Great ground and pound, a lot of submission wins, a Peruvian necktie on his record. You can see what I mean about my mouth being so dry and my throat and everything already. I mean, it's just a mess as always. The striking is good too, but it's really the grappling. That's really what you got to look out for. The movement is something else too. Never stops moving side to side. It helps his striking offense quite a bit, but the defense very much helped by the movement. It was really hard for people to hit him. Especially even Ode Osborne. I don't think he even really landed too much at all because he was moving so much. He's very, very hard to hit. Especially, you throw in the grappling. You don't want to get too close because of the grappling, but he's moving around so fast, so you gotta get something going. Just a very difficult guy to fight. And the fight IQ. I mean, I know we've only seen one of his fights, but he is so technical. Everything he does, super clean. Super clean. I literally did not see him make a single mistake against Osborne, and Osborne has been around for a while now. Didn't see him make a single mistake, not even one. Just super clean, intelligent fighting. Which, of course, would probably be why he's at minus 450 right now. So who am I giving the edge? I mean, both of them, like I said, did fight Osborne. Vergara lost in a decision. Almabayev absolutely dominated every single second of that fight and ended up getting a finish. I gotta go Almabayev. I don't know how you couldn't go with Almabayev. I mean, like I said, Vergara kind of struggling with the wrestling. Almabayev is just too good. He is just way too good and way too technical at that, especially the wrestling. And he's also a pretty big guy for the weight class. So all around, I think this guy is definitely gonna be taking home the win. Moving on, it is Despine and Josh Parisian. Despine making his debut. I cannot wait to see this guy. I watched all of his fights before just to do the research. I mean, it really was not a long watch. You could watch all of them literally in less than 10 minutes. You can watch all of them. Insane guy to watch, truly. I cannot wait to see how he does. Obviously, if you don't know, well, now you're gonna know. It's the striking. He is I believe it's Taekwondo, bronze medalist in the Olympics. Crazy stuff. I mean, to see a heavyweight move like this is insanity. It is not normal to see. Because if you think, I mean, like, listen, Aspinall is fast, and I do think that Aspinall is maybe faster than him. But the movement, the kicks on this guy, the movement, the speed of the punches, the speed of the kicks, the creativity of everything is something else. It is absolutely insane to watch, especially at heavyweight. Yeah, 3 KOs in less than 20 combined seconds in his last fight, in his last 3 fights. All 3 KOs. And if you combine the totals of all of them, less than 20 seconds. How is that even possible? I watched it and it really was truly insane to watch. I mean, this guy is something else. Cannot wait to see this guy. The grappling, though, we literally have not seen any grappling at all. He was not taken down in his debut. The guy did try. It was his debut, though. So, you know, obviously not a UFC level opponent. But the guy did try. He couldn't get taken down. So he's at least got something. He's 6'7", by the way. So just already statistically speaking, if you're 6'7", you're probably pretty hard to take down in the first place. And other than that, like I said, we literally know absolutely nothing. Because the 3 fights after that, less than 20 seconds combined. So there was no grappling in there whatsoever, obviously. So we know absolutely nothing about the grappling. But we do know that he is certifiably a beast. I mean, he is absolutely massive. 6'7", 87-inch reach. 87-inch reach. Unbelievable. And he moves, I would say, like a middleweight. He is insane for a heavyweight. Cannot wait to see this guy. And that is why he's sitting at minus 334 right now. Well, it's also because Parisian, let's be real, has not been good statistically. Historically, I should say. I'm going to need some more water here. 2-4 in the UFC for Parisian. And by the way, one of those wins was a split decision. So easily could have also been 1-5. He's not bad when you let him work. You know, he does land some crisp strikes with some okay power in there, but he's really nothing to write home about. You know, like, it's not like you're going, wow, I can't wait to see this guy fight. Or, oh my God, like, he's such a knockout threat. He's such a submission threat. He's kind of just, I even kind of struggled to write anything about him actually in these, because it's not like he's like terrible, but he's also not good. So it was just super difficult to make his slide, to be honest. The defense, though, I mean, that definitely wasn't too hard to figure out. He is a little slow. He does get hit a decent amount. He gets taken down somewhat easily. You know, but he does also have a lot of toughness from what we've seen. He can definitely take a beating. I mean, he is very hard to finish. He's been in a lot of decisions. Great cardio for heavyweight too, so he's not going to be getting tired by anything that Despine does. So, you know, he's not as bad as people are making him out to be, that's for sure. It's just, he's not terrible, but he doesn't have too many positive things to talk about. You know what I mean? Which, again, why he's a plus 250 right now is the dog. So who am I giving the edge? I mean, you can probably already tell where I'm going with this. I do actually think this is going to be closer than people think. I mean, it might be, it might not be. We don't really know because there's so many unknowns with this. We haven't really seen much of anything at all from Despine. Parisian is a pretty tough guy, so maybe he just rides him out, you know? Doesn't get knocked out in the first and then just rides him out to a decision. I really could see that happening. Maybe even uses some grappling, pushes him into the fence, you know? Like I said, doesn't get knocked out, does stuff like that. He might get the win. But ultimately, I'm gonna have to go with Despine because I just think he's way too slick, way too clean on the feet. He's got power, he's got very, very good striking, and he's got an insane reach and great movement. So I just have a hard time believing that Parisian is going to be able to stop that. I mean, like I said, he could he could get a decision win with the grappling, but I just imagine that it's going to be hard for Parisian to get that close first. And, you know, like, is he going to be able... I don't think he's going to be able to take him down too much because he's so tall. I just think Despain should be able to win this. But it is... Let's be real. It is definitely closer than the odds suggest on this one. That's for sure. Still going with my boy, Despain, though. And then we've got a light heavyweight battle. It is Felipe Lins, Iwan Cutelaba, the Hulkster. I do like Iwan Cutelaba. He's been fairly inconsistent, though, but always entertaining. But first, we talk about Lins, of course. He's one of the few guys that has wins in Bellator, PFL, and UFC. One of the only guys on the planet that can say that. Very impressive stuff. And to be fair, a lot of the losses that he has are at heavyweight. This is at light heavyweight. He moved down, I think, a couple fights ago. Smart move. Smart move. And like I said, those are where most of his losses are at. His style, I guess you could call it wrestling. He just pushes people very hard into the fence or for takedowns. So I guess actually similar to Parisian and maybe even kind of similar to Moreau's too as well. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. He's not getting crazy takedowns. He's just kind of pushing people into the fence. Speed. He is definitely fast for light heavyweight. Not much power though, but difficult and dangerous because of his fast strikes. He's a lot harder to hit, and he will land some strikes because he is just that fast. But the chin is suspect. Let's be real on this. He's been KO'd a bunch of times in his career, mostly at heavyweight though. So, you know, take that as you will. You know, is that really as bad as we think? It's at heavyweight, not light heavyweight. Either way, he does get knocked out, and when he does get hit, it doesn't usually go well for him, so this could definitely be a problem when you're going against an absolute maniac. But the odds are close, plus 120 right now for Felipe Lins. On the other side, like I said, Iwan Cutelaba, he's 6-8 in the UFC. Can you believe he's been fighting that long here already? Almost all fights end in either in a finish for either guy. So either he's getting finished or he's getting the finish. Do or die, as they say. Not very many decisions at all. And I don't really think this is going to be a decision either, but, you know, we'll find out for sure. But I can't imagine this is going to be a decision either. And most of his losses, by the way, like I said, 6-8, most of those losses are to people in the top 15. That's twice against Ankalaev. That's 2 of his losses. I keep forgetting that it's like my hand is not being shown here. two losses against Ankalaev, 1 against Walker. That's 3 total. Span, Glover, Cannonier, and Zechiku. That was 7 of the losses. You know, those are all fair losses. I mean, nobody's going to fault you for losing to Ankalaev. Walker, that's a good one. Span, you know, he's kind of up and down, but he's still very good. Glover is the champ. Cannonier went down in weight, almost a champ. And Zechiku is way better than his records suggest, too. He really shouldn't be losing at all. He's very good. That's more of a mental thing, to be honest. But anyway, again, another dangerous guy. So 6-8 in the UFC, but a pretty good 6-8 if there ever was one. The offense, for sure. If there was ever a guy that I was going to say offense and then defense is bad, this guy. Dangerous hands, heavy wrestling. He is a finisher by all definitions. He wants to hurt people. Offense is his thing. Defense, as I just said, not great. Well, it's not terrible, but it's not great. Because he focuses so much on the offense and walking forward that he then misses the defense sometimes, you know, with the striking and the BJJ. He can get a bit too aggressive sometimes and then pay for it. But I mean, definitely a beast. Does everything with power. Very tough guy, never gives up. Always in the fight, always live for a finish. Beast. And he's sitting at minus 150 right now. So who am I giving the edge here? I would say it's fairly close because of the styles. I mean, you know, we saw this in the odds as well. That's close in the odds. Both of them, by the way, fought Tanner Boser. That is an interesting little wrinkle. And this is the part that kind of guided me with what I ended up deciding here. It's one of the reasons anyway. Lins got knocked out and Kutelaba knocked out Tanner Boser. So that right there kind of tells you what I mean, especially about that chin thing that I was saying earlier. You know, Lins could win a decision with the wrestling, but you know, I could easily see Elon getting the KO in there. So who am I giving the edge? I'm actually giving it to Kutelaba because he's a lot younger too. Plus, I just think he's way too aggressive and explosive for somebody like Lins. I don't think he can deal with that kind of style with somebody that's that powerful. So I think it's going to be a rough night for Lins, and I think Kutelaba is probably going to get a finish here. Next one up. Oh my god. This is where the fights get real crazy. It's Michel Pereira, Michal Oleksiejczuk. Oh my god. Michel and Michal. Oh my goodness. What an insane matchup. On paper, I was like, why would they do this? And then I watched the tape and remembered, and I was like, yeah, this is why they did this. Absolute insanity, barn burner. This is where I think the crowd is going to start going absolutely bananas, is this fight. And at middleweight, of course. Never fighting at middleweight. I mean welterweight. No more welterweight for Michel Pereira. Never again. Fantastic striking, obviously. That is his main thing. Very accurate, great power. But it's clearly the creativity and the insanity of it all. Jumping around, doing flips and shit off the cage, elbows, flying things. Absolute maniac is Michel Pereira. Very entertaining to watch, especially now that he's at middleweight. I think that he's going to be able to utilize that a lot more because he will have a lot more cardio to work with. The movement, I mean, I just said it with the crazy techniques he does, but those are always off of movement. He moves very quickly and uniquely, let's say. Just insane movement all around. Shocking, honestly, that he was at 170 because of how big he is. I mean, look at this guy. But also, he was actually usually one of the faster, more difficult guys to hit, even at 170. And obviously, you know, the lower the weight, the faster the guys are on average. So the fact that he was able to do all of that at a faster weight, that's very impressive, because now that he's coming up to 185, a lot harder for people to deal with it, and it makes it much easier for him because the people are a lot slower. So this is definitely, I can't wait to see how Pereira does in this weight class against, well, better competition after this, let's say. But yeah, I mean, insane. Anyway, where was I here? Yeah, he's very hard to hit clean because of this. He really never gets hit that clean. It's always just, you know, he gets clipped here and there a little bit. You know, but that's about it. He doesn't really ever get hit super hard, super clean, because he's usually just not there. He's moving too fast. Yeah. And of course, absolute beast. I mean, if you can look like that at 170 pounds and then fight all 3 rounds and not slow down and still throw spinning stuff and flying stuff, even in the 3rd round, you're a beast. You are an absolute machine. I mean, this guy is nuts. And you know what? What's the craziest part about this is at 170, obviously he was an absolute, well, beast. He was huge. But even at 185, that's the crazy part, is even at 185, he is still usually the bigger guy. He is still one of the bigger guys in the division. That is insane to think about, that he's been able to do that, but it's true. And again, even once again, still being the bigger guy now, he still is going to be faster and moving more and have better cardio than a lot of the people in the division, which is craziness. Crazy stuff. Which I would imagine is why he's a favorite right now, minus 163. Oleksiejczuk on the other side. He is really the definition of a brawler. Again, if there was anybody that I was ever going to say is offense and not defense, I mean, yes, there's Ewan, but then there's this guy too. I mean, he does the exact same thing, but probably even worse, actually. Well, worse, I mean, in like a defensive standpoint, because he really just walks into things. He always walking forward, always swinging bombs. Gave Bohalio actually some tough moments in there. And he can go for some takedowns too. He's not only looking for the brawls, the stand-up brawls. He does look for some takedowns here and there too. But yeah, then of course the defense, that kind of pressure, that kind of striking style, wild looping punches. You're gonna be getting hit by some big shots here and there. It just happens. That's what happens when you fight like that. But he has shown a very good chin so far. He is a very tough... I mean, that Chidi fight, the Chidi and Jokuani fight, was absolutely insane. That was one of the better... I mean, actually, really just doing the whole research for this entire card was a treat. I mean, this card, it was crazy to do the research, to watch all these fights back. The Chidi and Jokuani fight was crazy. He got wrecked for most of that first round. Then he flipped it in the last minute of the round and got a TKO. Couldn't believe it. I mean, all of the commentators were like, oh my God, Mikhail is out. He is done. You know, throw it in. And then he ends up turning it around, gets the win over Chidi and Jokuani. So he is never out of the fight. Well, unless he gets knocked out. Which is why he's at plus 120. He has been doing pretty well recently, but who am I giving the edge here? Who am I giving the edge? I mean, we haven't seen Pereira face an aggressive puncher like this at middleweight yet. You know, he did get KO'd, by the way. I didn't know this until I saw this on Tapology a couple of days ago. He actually did get KO'd by Duško Todorovic at 185 pounds on the regional scene. That's Pereira. He did get knocked out by Todorovic. Before the UFC, of course. Maybe Mikhail can just walk him down, you know, break him, get a TKO. Or maybe Pereira really is just going to be, you know, that good and get a KO, or even just use his size and his movement to control Mikhail, get a decision. Who am I giving the edge after all that? I gotta go with Pereira on this. I mean, I just don't really think Mikhail is that great. Like I said, he's more of a brawler. He doesn't really have the defense to kind of deal with a guy like this. You know, Mikhail could get a KO if Pereira is being a little too crazy and he gets hit. But Pereira should be able to move well enough, use those skills, and get a finish himself. Or at least grab a decision. I think he should be able to win this. So that's who I'm going with on that one. Next up, it is Pedro Munoz and what's his first name again? Oh, I forget his name. Is it Kyler Phillips? I think it's Kyler Phillips. Phillips on the other side. Damn, I can't believe I forgot his name. Pedro Munoz might have actually beaten Chito Vera in his last fight, honestly. It was really that close. Those scorecards were atrocious, to be honest. I kind of scored it for him whatever, whatever. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying. And he's been in the top 15 for years. So this guy, even though he is getting older, watch out for him. That's for sure. He's not some old dude in the rankings that's just sitting there. Like, nah, he's still winning. Got that Gutierrez win. And like I said, kind of thought he beat Vera. He's very well-rounded. That's his main thing. Lots of good kicks, good boxing, very fast. Like I said, he beat Chris Gutierrez in the striking. Got a knockdown over Chris Gutierrez. And he's a world champion in BJJ. Not much power normally, to be fair. I was a little surprised that he got the knockdown. And minimal wrestling offensively. Doesn't use a lot of the wrestling offensively, but very good defensively. And then, of course, the BJJ. But not really using much of the wrestling offensively. But yeah, that's striking. I mean, if you can do that to Chris Gutierrez, you're probably a pretty good striker. The pace. That is what you need to watch out for. Keeps a very high pace, especially for somebody that's, like 37 now or 36 or something? Very high pace. That is very impressive. Walking forward, very fast, decent amount of movement. Just difficult to deal with that kind of style, which is why he's been around in the top 15 for that long. Very difficult guy to fight. The age, though, as I mentioned it, that is a problem. 9 years older. 9 years older than Phillips. Is it a problem yet? We're not really sure. Maybe I should have put the question mark in there. Well, no, but because it is always a negative factor. Let's be real. If you're 9 years older than the other person, it's a factor and it's probably negative. Eventually that chin, the speed, the movement, all of that is going to get worse and worse over time. That is his entire style. So does it fall apart now? Does it fall apart later? Tough to tell. Also, huge factor in this fight specifically, he's 7 inches shorter on the reach. 7 inches. That is a very big difference. And maybe that's why he's a plus 175. I mean, much shorter. He's a lot older. Phillips, on his way up. I can kind of see where they're going with this. Phillips, on the other hand, I had a recap for this one too, actually. Only 2 losses, by the way. He's only got 2 losses in his career. And his only 2 losses are by split decisions. One of them to Victor Henry. I believe that was in LFA. And then Howley and Paiva. That might have even been his debut right there. So 2 split decision losses against 2 guys that we know, and they're decent. So yeah, but the striking, I would say that's his strength. I mean, it was kind of hard to pin down what to write in his either, because it was kind of he's kind of well-rounded, but kind of not. It was a little bit hard to describe. So I just went with the striking. Heavy kicks, wild combos, good power. He did drop Barcelos. That's impressive. He does have some good BJJ too, but not much wrestling. That's why I didn't really want to say well-rounded, because for me, if I'm saying well-rounded, that means you are good at striking, wrestling, and BJJ. If you're not, then I'm probably not going to write well-rounded on it. And it has to be offensively and defensively too, usually. So I couldn't write that down for him. But, definitely a person that we've been watching for a while, or that the UFC community has been watching for a while, let's say. Movement, great offensive movement and defensive, really. He's not really that fast, which is, I guess, a bit strange if you think about why I'm talking about his movement. But the movement is good. He's just not that fast when he's doing it, especially defensively. So that could end up being a problem, specifically in this one. And the pace. The pace is really the problem, definitely in this matchup. Keeps a fairly low pace sometimes and then slows down throughout the fight as well. That's what he's been doing in his last few fights anyway. Has he gotten much better? I'm not sure. We shall see. But he is the favorite right now, minus 225. Who is going to be my pick? Who's getting the edge here? It definitely is very close. Munoz getting hit, is getting pretty old, obviously. And he is very small, like I said, 7-inch reach disadvantage. That's a lot. But he's super active. Like, he's got a very high pace. And like I said, Phillips doesn't. So that could come into play. Could also see Phillips getting a decision, stumbling him here and there, especially with that reach advantage. I could see that as well. Who's getting the edge here? Nobody. I had to make it even. Which means you should be going for the underdog, of course. Because if it's even, go for the person with the better odds, of course. But yeah, with the age of Pedro Munoz and then the momentum, of Phillips going up, both of them being somewhat inconsistent, having good performances, bad performances, it's very hard to tell what's going to happen in this fight. So I'm just calling it even. Next up, it is another one. I mean, of course, I'm looking forward to all of these, but this is another great one. Gamrot. I fucking love Gamrot. Oh my God, I love Gamrot. And then RDA on the other side. Gotta love RDA as well. Hall of Famer for sure. 23-2 is Gamrot. Lost a very, very close fight with Dariush. I would have said it was a 29-28 probably. Very, very, very close fight. And then the other loss was against Guram in his debut. And I think kind of universally, usually people agree that's garbage. Gamrot definitely won that fight. So really should be probably 23-1. So meh, or 24-1, I should say. But yeah, so he's good. Let's just say he's good. Grappling is obviously his main thing. Second, I would say he's the second, maybe the third best at wrestling in the whole division. Islam obviously number one, probably. I mean they're close though. Islam, then him, Gamrot, and then Sarukian. But Sarukian, Gamrot, very close. They're kind of tied for second and third in the wrestling there. Absolutely insane stuff to watch. I love the wrestling scrambles. That Dariush one was crazy to rewatch. Yeah, crazy stuff. And keeps a heavy gaming pace. Not a lot of people can deal with that kind of thing. Kind of like a Merab, but kind of not. Because Merab, Gamrot's doing it in a wilder, kind of scrambly kind of way. Merab's not really doing that. But yeah, anyway. Speed, though. Holy hell. Insanely fast takedowns. The takedowns, great timing, super fast. Because if Dariush is having a problem with your takedowns, you're definitely really, really good. Great movement and speed for defense as well. So just really fast all around. And the cardio. I've never seen this guy slow down. Not even once. Not even in the 5-round fight against Arman. None of the 3-round fights. I've never seen this guy slow down. I've never seen this guy gas out. He is an absolute machine. Which is why, of course, he's at minus 450 as a pretty big favorite. RDA, what is there to say about this guy? Definitely the grappling has been his strength in the past. Usually with takedowns, control on the ground and on the fence. He couldn't really do that in his last fight anymore, though, or really the last couple of fights. With Luke, that was up a weight class, so that was probably more so to do with the size, but still. The age kind of getting up there could be a little bit more of a problem. You never know. And he couldn't really take down Fiziev that much. He kind of just pushed him into the fence. Whereas when Gamrot was fighting Fiziev, even though Gamrot fought him after he fought RDA, Gamrot was getting some takedowns in there, and Fiziev was way better at wrestling by then, by the way. And even then, he was still having problems with Gamrot. He is just insane at the wrestling. But anyway, moving back to RDA here. Could be an age thing now, which is what I was saying. The pace. That's what I was getting at. Very low pace in the last few fights. That could be an age thing. It really could be. Because I don't remember RDA having a super low pace before, but definitely in his last 2 or 3 fights, it's been noticeable where he's kind of getting outpaced by people. So really could be a problem when you're going against somebody like Gamrot. And again, he's 39, by the way. 39. That is something to look out for. The cardio, though, I've never seen him get tired. He just has a low pace. But the cardio seems great. Fights the same the whole fight. Again, doesn't slow down, doesn't gas out. He just kind of fights the way he fights all the time. And he's at plus 33. So who is getting the edge this time? Is it Gamrot? Is it RDA? Like I said, they both fought Fiziev. RDA was doing well with the wrestling. Well, mostly just pushing him into the fence a little bit here and there, and then taking him down just against the fence and then back up again. But he did get KO'd, of course. Gamrot did win. Of course, it was a weird one with Fiziev's leg injury, of course. But he was doing a lot better with the wrestling, which, again, was very impressive to see because it was pretty obvious that Fiziev was way better at wrestling than he was against RDA. And even then, even with Fiziev improving that much, Gamrot still was getting some takedowns here and there, and better takedowns than RDA. Yeah, I zoned out for a second. I had to figure out where I was for a second. Important to note, though, that Fiziev... Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. I just said that. Either really could win a decision. I can't see a finish really on either side. I'm just seeing a decision here. So who's going to get that decision? I got to go with Gamrot. I got to go with my man Gamrot here. I do think it's probably going to be a somewhat close fight, but I just think Gamrot is kind of too much and then too skilled for an older RDA. If we were talking about RDA, 5, 6, 7 years ago, probably a different conversation. But now, I don't think that he can handle this kind of guy. I don't think he can handle this kind of guy. So I gotta go with Gamrot. Now we're at the ladies. It's Sarah Manara, formerly Chukagian, and Macy Barber, the future herself. Flyweight, let's get right into it. Sarah Manara, very close fight. Ow. Hurt my throat there. Hold on a sec. Ouch. Sarah Manara. Okay. Very close fight with Fiorot in her last one. Basically, really just lost because she gave up a quick takedown in the 3rd round. To be honest, if it wasn't for that, she probably would have won that fight, which is pretty insane considering Fiorot is essentially fighting for a title shot now against Blanchfield. So, Chukagian wins that instead. She would be probably fighting Blanchfield right now and then, potentially for that title shot. The striking is obviously, it's really, that's all she does. Very technical kickboxing, very good movement, great defense. Getting a little slower, though. Maybe a little less pop on the punches. That's what I've noticed in the last couple of fights. Yeah. But yeah, not really a power puncher. More so, I don't want to say a point fighter, but kind of a point fighter. You know what I mean? The wrestling is for sure her weak spot. Amanda Hebos, coming up from strawweight, by the way. Coming up from strawweight, by the way, Amanda Hebos, to flyweight here. kept taking her down and then kept her there for a while a couple of times. And Fialho did the exact same thing in that third round right at the end. To the point where, like I said, I thought Ribas won at the time, but I will say when I rewatched it this past, couple days ago, I'm not sure if I would say that anymore, actually, because if you look at the damage, you might be saying Chookagian, but it was definitely a very, very close fight, and at the time, I thought Ribas had won it. Even though I did pick Chookagian, I thought Ribas won that fight. Anyway, I thought I picked Chookagian. Yeah, I definitely picked Chookagian. Anyway, yeah. Cardio, definitely her strength. I've never seen her get tired either. Pretty high pace the entire fight, all fight, every fight, and just keeps it going the entire fight, no matter what. So cardio, not an issue whatsoever. But she is sitting at plus 162. That could also be an age thing, but we'll get into that in a little bit when we get through Barber here. I would actually say one of the few women that I've given this distinction to, I really do think that she's actually pretty well-rounded now. She's got good striking. I mean, she knocked out, well, it was a TKO, but still, against Amanda Ribas, she clearly does have hands. She does damage a lot. Is she going to get a brutal knockout? No, probably not. But she is going to make you bleed, and she's going to make it a rough fight for you. But not only that, she clearly has the grappling as well, and she uses her size very well as well. She's difficult to deal with against the fence. She gets takedowns, she gets clinches. She really is pretty well-rounded. Very rare on the female side, I gotta say. So yeah, I've actually, I used to not be quite as impressed by her, but I will say the last couple of fights have, brought me back into being somewhat impressed, being actually pretty impressed by Barber, I gotta say. And even though I was getting pissed off with the split decisions that she was winning, I do still like her. I still like her. I mean, how do you hate that? I think she's kind of cute. But anyway, I like that face. Anyway. But yeah, well-rounded. Definitely. And she's fast. She's fast. Very fast striking. Which, for somebody that's bigger in the division, you're not usually going to be the faster one, but she is. So it seems like she's kind of using the strength because she's so fit. Like, she's obviously not big. She's fit, so she's using, I guess, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I'm starting to lose it already, but she's fast. She's fast. That's all you need to know. And then, honestly, beast. She doesn't really seem to slow down. I mean, she's got power, she's got speed, she's got cardio, she's got a good skill set. To me, that's the definition of a beast. And again, I never say that about the female fighters. At least I haven't this year yet, because we haven't gotten to the beasts. I mean, obviously, when I think of beast, I think Zhang Weili. That's the definition of a beast on the female side. But I gotta say, Barber is definitely one of them as well, which is why she's at minus 200. Both of them fought Amanda Ribas recently, like I said. I thought Sermonara might have lost that one. Like I said, it was pretty close. I rewatched it, and I'm not really sure anymore, but might have lost. Because again, at the time, I thought she did lose. And I did hear a lot of other people saying the exact same thing. So yeah, and on the other side, that was Barber's last fight, and she just really picked Amanda Ribas apart most of the time, busted her up pretty bad, and also got some good control. So not only was she winning the striking, she was winning the grappling as well, and Sermonara couldn't do that at all. Like, she was fairly even with the striking, more active with the striking, of course, because that's what Sermonara does, but the grappling was an obvious weakness. So the fact that Barber dominated both sides, maybe you can kind of tell where I'm going with this. I'm going with Macy Barber. Gotta go with the Barber. If this was a couple years ago, I definitely would have gone with Chookagian 100%. And I was considering making this fight even and not giving out an edge here. But Barber, I mean, she's much younger. She keeps getting better. Sermonara kind of on the way down a little bit. She really just should be able to win. I mean, she's got the size. She's got aggression too, by the way. Very aggressive. She's got the skill set. Like I said, she's got the speed. She's got everything. And she's got the looks. I mean, again, I think she's cute. Maybe a lot of people don't. I don't know. I don't know. And is that a factor? Sometimes. I'm going with Barber, though. Next up, Razor Blades and Gelton Almeida at heavyweight, of course. Blades was striking with Pavlovich. What an idiot. But seriously, though, I mean, like, why would you do that? Even as I was watching it, I was like, well, he's got to be shooting for a takedown soon, right? Like, there's no way that he's just going to strike with Pavlovich. Like, how dumb are you? Like, really? That is a crazy thing to be doing. But he did do it for pretty much the entire fight as long as it lasted. Obviously, he got knocked out because that's a stupid thing to do. But he did last a lot longer than I thought he would doing that strategy. And longer than pretty much anybody else who has employed that strategy. So that really just speaks to, how well-rounded he is as a heavyweight. It is very rare to see a heavyweight that's actually well-rounded like that. So the striking has been there. The grappling is obviously there. I think he has like 60 plus takedowns or something like that in the UFC. I saw that in one of the last fights. I think maybe it was the Rosenstrike one. He's like the 11th or 12th person to get 60 plus takedowns in the UFC or something like that. So obviously has the grappling as well. A rare, well-rounded heavyweight. But the pace has tripped him up at some times. Not all the time, though. I want to be clear on that. He's not always a low pace. I don't really know what it's been, but it's like some fights he has a really, really low pace. Some fights he's got a bit of a higher pace. So it's kind of hard to tell what he's going to be doing. But in general, it is lower than you'd like. That's for sure. The cardio, though, and I mean, that's probably why he keeps... that's probably why his cardio is so good, and he never gets tired because he keeps a low pace. But I've never really seen him get tired. Same output all 3 rounds. That's impressive for heavyweight, I mean, all in itself. I mean, we literally just saw last week with Gagiev tiring out after 2 rounds, basically. So you do see... And he was undefeated. So you do see it quite often where the heavyweights get a lot, like their output either goes out the window completely or they get finished like that. So pretty rare to see, well, for one, rare to see a well-rounded heavyweight and rare to see a heavyweight with cardio. So Blades, definitely still an elite heavyweight, that's for sure. Which is why this fight is actually completely dead even, by the way. Minus 110 on both sides, but we'll now get into Almeida. Gelton Almeida. I would actually say he has probably, at least from what I've seen so far, the best wrestling and BJJ, not just at heavyweight, but also at light heavyweight. And I mean, Aspinall, okay, maybe Aspinall has better BJJ. We don't really know the extent to... Actually, we really don't know the extent to how good Aspinall or Almeida is, really, because we haven't seen a lot of them. But yeah, definitely at 205, though. Almeida, unparalleled in grappling, wrestling and BJJ. I still think, though, at 265, he's either first or second, even there. Insane stuff. Literally threw Derek Lewis through the air. Threw the Black Beast in the air. That is crazy stuff. not a whole lot of people can do that. I mean, pretty much nobody actually can do that except for Jailton Almeida. And he's done that to a few different guys. But the most impressive, obviously, being Derek Lewis. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but he is very big. And yeah, really nobody's been able to stop his takedowns yet. There were a couple of takedowns here and there that were stuffed, but then he would get the second or the third one. So really nobody's been able to stop these takedowns yet. And very, very good BJJ for a bigger guy, because these bigger guys, they kind of don't really need to know a lot of BJJ because they don't use it very often. And also, because of how big they are, it's kind of just like you don't need to be as good just because of the strength and also just the size of the guys. Like, you can't fight like that at 125. You just can't, because they're just way too good. They're fast, they're skinny, so it's just, you just can't fight like that. But at heavyweight, yeah, nobody's really as good as Jailton Almeida in that kind of department. The striking, though, is a real question, and that's why I put the question mark there, because we don't know if it's bad or not. We really just don't know much of anything, because we still haven't really seen it. I mean, he hasn't faced anybody who can stop his takedowns, so we don't know how good he is at striking, because he hasn't had to strike. And he's never really been hit either, so if he's never been hit, and he's never really been hitting anybody, we don't really know anything at all about his striking. So this is going to be very interesting to see how this is going to turn out. And I mean, obviously a beast. I mean, look at this guy. At 205, 265, I said before that he could have been a double champ. Now I'm not sure because of Aspinall, of course. But I definitely think that he could be top 3 at heavyweight and then definitely be a light heavyweight champ for sure. For sure, he could be a champ up there. Yeah. Like I said, very fast for heavyweight as well. Fast takedowns, great timing. Throwing full-blown heavyweights around like it's nothing. Doesn't seem to slow down. I mean, even in the 5-round fight with Derek Lewis, he never really slowed down. Like, it never looked like he was tired. He was kind of just like, well, I don't think I'm going to be getting a finish like this. So, he would just switch to something else, a little bit of ground and pound, a little bit of submission attempts. He never really stopped. He never really was getting tired. He just never got a finish out of it. That's okay. That's okay. And yeah, minus 110. So yeah, minus 110, minus 110. Both sides. Very close on paper. Just very close everywhere. Blaydes has been against all the best people pretty much at 265 and is more well-rounded, at least from what we've seen. And Almeida has dominated everybody in front of him so far. So really tough to tell what's going to happen. So I made it even. Sorry, guys. Like I said, neither one of them has gone against a grappler. Blaydes has decent striking. We haven't seen Almeida strike at all yet. So it's like there's way too many questions of how this is going to turn out. We just really don't know. And maybe even though Blaydes does have good grappling, maybe Almeida really is just that insanely good at getting takedowns. Maybe he really is just that good, and he's going to even be able to do that to Blaydes. We just don't know. So I've gotta make it even. Now we're at the main card, and that is opening up with Petr Yan, Song Yadong. Oh my god, what a fight. What a fucking fight. I mean, this is where these fights get truly out of control. Well-rounded. He really is. I mean, people think of his boxing, obviously, most of the time, but he actually is very well-rounded. Incredible, super crisp boxing and kicks. I would say the second or third best in the division, just behind, of course, Suga. And then I also included Sandhagen in there, but Yan did beat Sandhagen, so, I guess you would have to give Yan the second best striking. But yeah, incredible stuff. It really is to watch. But not only does he have the striking, he really does have good wrestling and good control and ground and pound, because he did use that against a lot of other people. We just haven't seen it recently. He did use it against Suga, where he was throwing Suga around, which hasn't really happened with anybody else fighting Suga, so that was pretty impressive. And like I said, yeah, he used it against other people too. Yeah, so pretty well-rounded. The pressure, though, huge. Insane pressure. Always walking forward, always looking to do damage. I mean, this guy wants to hurt you. He wants to hurt you. Keeps a high boxing pace, throws in takedowns. So it's not even just boxing pressure, it's kind of just pressure all around with a bunch of different things, which makes it even harder to deal with because you don't know what he's going to be throwing next. Very, very difficult to deal with that kind of style. And the fight IQ. Again, I mean, I know it's funny. I know it's kind of ironic to say this after the whole Aljo thing, you know, him kneeing him in the head, of course, and then the split decision losses. So it's kind of like, really? Fight IQ? But no, seriously, he is very, very smart. He knows how to win fights. I mean, he just knows where to be and what to do. And he's got a great game plan most of the time, too. He just doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. He really doesn't. So, you know, I have to put fight IQ on there. And again, I know the whole Aljo thing and everything else, yes. But he really, really does have good fight IQ. And he really does not make a whole lot of mistakes. Just one colossal mistake in his career. Which is why he has a slight favorite right now, -125. On the other side, it's the young gun. It's Song Yadong. Pretty good boxing. Mixes it up with kicks as well. Lots of power, decent accuracy in there. So the striking is for sure where he's best at. I will say, though, I mean, his grappling is good too now, but that's not his main thing for sure. And we did see him struggle a little bit against Sandhagen. That was, I think, a couple years ago now at this point, but you know, still a thing to look out for. That's why I didn't write down well-rounded, because he did have that problem before. So has he shored that up? We shall see, because I'm sure it's going to get tested a little bit. The pace, though, does not keep a very high pace. He's kind of just winning really based on the damage that he does, and he does a lot of damage. So it makes sense why he's winning, but yeah, he's not winning based off of his activity and his pace and the strikes that he lands, like the accumulation of strikes that he lands. It's really mostly the damage and then the control that he does get in some of his other fights. So yeah, not much for pace. Very tough. I mean, you're not going to finish this guy, let's be real. Probably anyway. The only reason he got finished against Corey Sandhagen is because he got a really nasty cut and the doctor stepped in, called it off because he was bleeding too much. But he was never even rocked in that fight. He actually just got a cut, and that just happened to be it. It was a very, very close fight up until that point. So he really is the real deal. And again, very, very tough. Never slows down even if he gets hit. Always in the fight, never gives up. This guy, actually, I would say with a lot of the Chinese fighters, a lot of them are like this. They're very, very tough. Very tough. And that does translate over to Song Yadong as well. But he is a slight underdog right now at +100. But again, that's really basically 50-50. So, you know. Another tough one on paper. Who am I going to give the edge to here? I mean, either one of them could realistically get a decision. You know, like Jan, he's way more experienced, of course, but he has been kind of, you know, sliding down a little bit. But it's so tough to tell because, I mean, who are the losses against? You know, losses to Aljo. I mean, one of the losses, not really a loss, let's be real. Then the other loss, it was a split, and it was kind of controversial. I thought he lost, but again, it was that close. So again, that's the champ. That was in a title fight. Then we had the Suga fight, another split decision loss. You know, like, that was a tough one too. Like, that really could have gone to him as well. And then, of course, you had the Merab one, and let's be real, that was definitely all Merab, but that was a completely different style than this one. Jan, there's nobody like Merab. I'm just not even going to compare Merab to Jan here, or Song Yadong here. So, you know, it's really tough to tell what kind of level Petr Yan is actually at now, because, like, is he getting worse, or is he just fighting the best of the best and they're just barely edging him out? I mean, it's really, really tough to tell. And then Song has been going really uphill recently, and by that same token, is he going against people that are just not as good? I mean, he clearly is, because there's definitely an experience difference here. But he had a close fight with Sandhagen too. So, I mean, this really is all over the place, which is why I'm going to have to give another even. I'm going to have to. It's just too close. They're both really good. We don't really know where either one of them is at. Like, is Jan really is Jan really kind of going downhill? Or is it just the fights that we've seen recently? Or is Song Yadong really going straight uphill? Or is that his kind of fights recently? I don't know. We don't know. There are too many questions. It's probably going to be a decision. I can't see either guy getting finished here. And it's probably going to be a pretty close one. I could see this being pretty much a carbon copy, really, of what we saw against Suga. I really think this is going to be really close and a very fun fight to watch to open the main card, but I just can't tell who is going to win here. After that, of course, it's another good one because it's the main card. Gilbert Burns, Dorino, or Doreen Fro, as I love, because I mean, that hair is beautiful. My God, I wish he would stay like that all the time. Oh my God, he looks so good. It just looks so good on him. It really does. And then on the other side, JDM himself, Jack Della Maddalena, on the other side. But we will open up with Burns. Had that I would say maybe ill-advised fight against Bilal in the last one. Ended up being 5 rounds too. Bit of a weird one. And then also seemed to get injured. It was very strange. He kind of seemed to get injured in the first or the second round. He fought like less than a month before that. So it was kind of like, why are we doing this fight? It just didn't seem like a good idea all around. And he kind of paid the price for that. And again, got injured in the fight as well. So just kind of a rough showing for him there. And I don't want to disregard that fight completely, but on a certain level, it's kind of like, it didn't even look like the same guy when, because we just saw him against Jorge Masvidal before that, and he had a much higher pace. He was fighting just way different style of fighting, and it was just weird to see. So I don't really think that was the normal Burns that we got in that fight. But, it's still there, and it's still something to consider, of course. Very well very well rounded, great power, good accuracy, popped Masvidal actually a couple of times, almost knocked Masvidal out. That is pretty crazy. And then also, of course, has fantastic wrestling in BJJ. Did get pieced up a little bit by Bilal in the last one, but like I said, that was a bit of a weird one. And it sounded like after he might have been actually just fighting with one hand. So, I mean, you're fighting Bilal one-handed. Like, it's not going to go that well for you if you're doing that. So I don't really know if I want to consider that or not. But again, did do very, very well in striking against Masvidal. And to me, that's why it was like, this is not even it's like I'm not even watching the same fighter in these two fights. And it was really even more noticeable because I'm watching them back to back in a row, yesterday. So it's really noticeable when you watch the fights back to back like that. That's why I watch the tape like that, because you really do see stuff like that pretty easily. The speed. He is very fast for 170. And I mean, that's probably because I think he was at 155 before, from what I remember. I didn't see him at 155, but I've been told, and on Tapology, I believe I saw that. So yeah, it makes sense that he is one of the faster guys there. Very fast takedowns, very fast strikes and combos. As they say, speed kills. And the toughness. I mean, that Chimaev fight was bananas. That was crazy, crazy stuff. And I mean, he does get clipped sometimes. He does get hit here and there, but I mean, he is called Durinho for a reason. He is very, very durable. Very, very durable. And I mean, we even saw it in the last fight against Bilal, but that was a real injury. That wasn't really a toughness issue. That was like whoops, there goes my remote. That wasn't a toughness issue. That was really just I can't strike with my hand kind of issue. Yeah, and never slows down either. Yeah. Durinho Burns at plus 130. Definitely a close fight for sure. JDM on the other side now. 10 years younger, by the way. 10 years younger than Burns. Could that be a factor? I mean, I think it's always a factor, but could it be a problem? Possibly. We shall see. Pretty clean boxing. I mean, that's really his main thing, is the striking, of course. Possibly the best boxing in the division. Very, very good. Like, really, really good. Clean boxing. Super accurate. Lots of power. Was way more clean than Kevin Holland, who had a huge reach advantage. Kevin Holland, huge reach advantage, and was still getting outstruck by JDM. That is how good, how fast, and how clean this guy is. He is very, very good. He was landing over 50% of his strikes against Holland. And Holland does not usually lose striking battles. So the fact that he was doing that well and was fighting that clean in the striking against Kevin Holland, that really does say something. That is very impressive. And of course, lots of power. He had a finishing streak of what was it? Actually, I think almost all of his wins were by finish. And he did have the UFC finishing streak there of 3 or 4 in a row. 3 of those, or 2 of those, whatever it was, were by knockout. So crazy, crazy stuff. And great defense too, because he also really wasn't getting hit that much by Kevin Holland either. And again, with that kind of reach advantage, that's hard to do. That is very, very difficult to do against somebody like Kevin Holland. The grappling though, and this is a question mark, because it's really difficult to tell if JDM just isn't really that great at the wrestling, or if Basil Hafez is insanely good at wrestling. And it truly is, it really could be either way, or a combination of the two, because Basil Hafez was just, he threw him around a couple of times, taking him down a lot, took him down a couple of times too, but actually threw him around a little bit as well, lifted him up a couple of times. JDM got back up fairly quickly, but he still got taken down multiple times. So I don't really know if that's just because Hafez is that good, or if JDM actually does have some wrestling issues in here that we just haven't seen yet because he hasn't had to use them at all. Don't really know yet. The pressure though, I mean, he is always walking forward. Smothers people with the boxing, always moving forward. Very, very dangerous guy. Especially if you're just standing there not fighting back. You definitely don't want to be doing that. You want to be fighting back, moving around, doing something, or else this guy's going to walk straight through you. and he's at minus 163. Who am I getting? Who am I giving the edge here? Like I said, it is pretty close, especially with the styles, because we know Burns is very well-rounded. He could get the takedowns. He could get some control, maybe even a submission. Probably not a submission, but maybe with the control and the wrestling, could get the decision in there. JDM could get a KO, could get a decision in there himself. We're all over the place with this because it really is that close. Which means it's even. It really is. Especially with what I saw against Hafez. If I wouldn't have seen that Hafez fight, if that fight had never happened and if he would have fought somebody else that wasn't a grappler, which actually I think he was scheduled to fight Sean Brady. It would have been interesting to see Sean Brady because he was actually prepared to fight him. So, that would have been like, oh, okay, like, now we know. Now we know for sure how good he actually is at wrestling and grappling. But yeah, there's just no way to know really how, because we haven't seen Hafez since either. So we don't know how good Hafez actually is to kind of compare it. Yeah. And then of course what we saw with Bilal and Burns, maybe Burns is going downhill as well. And maybe he'll have a problem with the striking. We just don't really know. There's a lot of questions going into this. Yeah, very, very difficult to tell. And like I said, it was actually a split decision win over Kevin Holland too. So it wasn't even like the cleanest win. I thought it was pretty obvious. I thought it was 29-28 for JDM, but still, it was a split. Oh, yeah. Oh, excuse me. Speaking of Kevin Holland, he's up next against MVP, making his debut. And I had never really seen MVP fight before this week. So, I obviously, of course, watched the tape on him. And yeah, I see why everybody's so excited. He is so good. His striking is absolutely insane. If you think, he's basically Michel Pereira. Let's be real. He's like Michel Pereira at welterweight, but like not massive. That's kind of the difference, really. And he's actually basically exactly the same as Kevin Holland, too, really. Yeah, so we'll get into that right now. I'm so excited for this one. This is going to be insane. Lots of power. Oh, yeah. Striking is obviously his whole thing. Lots of power. Uses his length well all the time because he's always the longer guy. Except for in this matchup. They're kind of tied. But other than that, he's always been the longer guy, and he uses it very, very well. He's also pretty fast. Only really outstruck by Wonderboy and JDM. Those were kind of the only two guys that beat him in striking. Other than that, he's really only lost because of grappling. And he did almost KO Wonderboy in the first round, got the flash KO on the feet. That was touch and go, for sure. Very creative with strikes, wild KOs. They talk about that one off of his back sometimes where he just hooked it up and then boom, boom, boom. Crazy, crazy stuff. He almost knocked out Ponzinibbio on one leg, too. That was another one that almost got a KO. So very, very creative, which is what I'm saying. They're very similar. Very similar. But yeah, the wrestling is a problem. Well-documented wrestling problems, for sure. Very good BJJ, though, I have to say. Like, I really do have to point that out. He does have good jiu-jitsu. It's just the wrestling. Again, and maybe it was a size thing because this was mostly at middleweight, but he was getting controlled and thrown around and just could not get back up, could not get his positions back at all. So the wrestling is a problem. But is MVP going to wrestle him? Probably not. So is this relevant? Maybe not. Maybe. We shall see. He's definitely tough, though. There's no questioning that. He can definitely take a beating. He got hit quite a bit by JDM. He got hit, obviously, quite a bit by Wonderboy. And the only reason he stopped fighting Wonderboy, because it was called a TKO in between rounds there, is because I believe his hands were broken or something like that. So he just really couldn't, he couldn't really land his punches anymore. That was really the only reason why he actually got TKO'd here, because of that. So, yeah, he's definitely tough. What I'm saying is that wasn't like a real, knockout. So other than that, he's never been knocked out for sure. So I would have a hard time believing MVP is going to be able to do that. And he is always looking for a KO himself. Minus 138. So very, very close fight right now. I'm starting to lose it a little bit. And this is what happens when we get later into the show each time, of course. MVP. Oh my goodness. The striking, of course, insane. Absolutely insane striking. Again, reminds me a lot of Michel Pereira, actually. That's a very good comparison. Super fast, very unique. Hands from the hips, so usually low hands. Lots of movement, running around, angles, over the top, crazy, crazy stuff. Kicks, spinning shit, flying shit, crazy stuff. Dangerous every time he throws something. He really is. But I will say he has kept a low pace at some times. Not all the time, but he does kind of just stand there waiting sometimes. Probably more waiting for a counter, you know what I mean? The movement jumps right off the page. It really does. Well, maybe not off the page. It jumps off the screen. There you go. Insane movement. Very, very fast, too. Difficult to avoid, really. I mean, because he closes the distance so fast with his movement. Because he's, 1 second he's here, then the next second he's 2 feet to the right. Next second he's 5 feet over there. Next second maybe he's in your face and he jumps forward like 6 or 7 feet. Like, insane. Like, truly wild to watch, because nobody really fights like this. It is amazing to watch. I cannot wait to see this fight. Difficult to avoid too, obviously, especially if you're not much of a mover yourself. That is impossible to avoid. Wrestling, though, kind of like Holland a little bit, but this was a problem even in his weight class of welterweight. In Bellator as well. Was taken down multiple times in recent fights and was kept down for the most part. He did get up a couple of times, but it did take him quite a while. So, is that something Kevin Holland could look for? Maybe. I'm not ruling it out. That's for sure. I'm not ruling it out. And he's a plus 110. So, I mean, the odds maker is definitely taking this guy seriously, even though it's his UFC debut, of course. But, being that I believe he was a champion in Bellator. If not, he definitely was a number one contender, because I saw the number next to his name. But I don't know if he ever won the belt or not. And I mean, holy shit. If you want to see a great bare knuckle fight too, on YouTube, you can actually see MVP versus Mike Perry. And they even actually went into an extra round, a 6th round. Can you imagine? 5 rounds. It was tied after 5. They go to an extra round. Mike Perry wins in a split. Crazy, crazy stuff. I mean, I watched it just for this, because I was like, it's still striking. So I was like, okay, how is his boxing too? I kind of wanted to see that. Very entertaining to watch. I highly recommend watching it. I really do. But yeah, the wrestling though, not great. So who am I giving the edge here? I mean, really, they have the exact same body, a pretty similar style. I don't want to say exactly the same, because MVP does move a lot more, but really could go either way with this. MVP could get a decision. Holland could get a decision. Could get a KO. MVP has been knocked out before, whereas Holland has not, except for, of course, kind of that TKO with Wonder Boy. And honestly, could even get a submission. We haven't seen MVP. Well, we haven't seen MVP at all yet, technically, unless you've seen him on Bellator. But we haven't really seen I don't even know where I was going with this, but Holland does have good BJJ, so he could get also submitted in there as well. Ultimately, though, because they're essentially the same, like they're very, very similar fighters, and we also don't really know how truly good MVP is because he hasn't fought those guys. It's kind of hard. It's really hard to tell how good he's going to come into this. And Holland has been kind of hit and miss in his career. So, and he kind of makes some weird decisions in the fights here and there as well. So it's really hard to tell how good Holland is going to be. And we just don't know how good MVP really is yet. So too tough for me to tell. It's an even one. It's an even one for me here. Oh my goodness. It is possibly, I would say this is the fight that I'm excited for the most. It seems to be the fight that most people are excited for the most. Oh my god, I cannot wait to watch this. Cannot fucking wait to watch this. Poirier, Saint Denis. Oh my goodness, what an absolute war we're gonna see. Absolutely amazing. I cannot wait. Let's get right into the co-main event. Dustin Poirier. I mean, the striking is definitely where he's most comfortable. I mean, super technical boxing. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button here. Super technical boxing, good power, fantastic accuracy in combos, great defense too. That's pretty underrated. We did see, of course, a hole in that defense when he lost to Gaethje there. I think that was more of a freak thing, but still pretty amazing that Gaethje managed to do that. But other than that, he has been pretty great in terms of the defense and the striking. Yeah. I mean, dog. Definitely a dog. Being in some absolute wars. I mean, the Hooker fight, crazy. And then, of course, most recently with Michael Chandler, of course, too. Always pushes through and comes out the other side, except for against Gaethje, of course. And always wins those wars. He always wins those wars. So it's hard to doubt. It's hard to doubt Dustin Poirier. It really is. And great cardio. Great cardio. The experience is for sure a difference maker in this one, especially with BSD not really having a whole lot of experience. Really could come into play here. Yeah, he's very smart with how he fights and his game plan going into fights. I mean, really, you just don't even need to look farther than the Conor fights. His whole plan was to be using the leg kicks because Conor leaves it open a lot. So he used the leg kicks and that won him that first, well, the second fight technically, the first rematch, let's say. And then the one after that, I mean, well, I kind of think he was losing that one, but it was still pretty close. But anyway, does not make a whole bunch of mistakes, has an amazing experience, and he knows how to use it. He does not, I don't know. I'm just saying he's experienced. I don't know. Again, I'm falling apart here. This is what happens at the end of the streams every time. Shockingly, plus 175. Like, I understand where people are coming from. Poirier just got knocked out by Gaethje. BSD is on a rocket ship right now. I mean, he's so good and so dangerous. I 100% understand what they're saying. But if Gaethje hadn't have lost, if Gaethje hadn't have knocked him out like that, the odds would not be like this at all. It would be Poirier, the huge favorite. Poirier would actually probably be that minus 200, 250, whatever favorite that BSD is right now. That's probably what would have happened. So anyway, that's important to remember that. On the other side, it's BSD, Benoit Saint Denis. Very dangerous. I would call this guy very well-rounded, to be honest. Dangerous, wild striking with the power. He's got some knockouts. Very good wrestling, though, too. And very good BJJ. He's got some submissions in there as well against some pretty good guys. I mean, Bonfim is on there. That's impressive. Knockout over Moises. I mean, he's definitely the real deal for sure. And very, very well-rounded. The pace is, the pace is definitely something you got to watch out for. Always looking for a finish. I mean, this guy walking forward the entire time, does not care. Actually borderline reckless, if not completely reckless. Always looking for damage, always looking for a finish. Very, very dangerous. Kind of like Michael Chandler, actually. That's probably why people like both of them so much, and why I like both of them so much. Always wants to fight. Running forward, actually, not walking forward. I put running on there in my notes for a reason. Running forward. Which he actually was running forward against Frivola. When he got the head kick, he was literally like running head kick while he was running forward. Brutal KO. Amazing, amazing stuff. But anyway, has been a problem though. Just a small point, side note here. Has been a problem though, because he does walk into a lot of damage because he is so aggressive. So that can be a problem, and definitely could be a problem against somebody like Poirier, especially over 5 rounds. Don't forget that. He's very tough. I mean, the definition of toughness. I have never seen anybody as tough as this guy, truly, because what I saw on Fight Island when he fought Zaleski and that ref, the worst ref I've ever seen. I mean, BSD was basically a corpse just walking at that point. He was a zombie. And he just kept going. I gave him the most valuable fighter, actually. I remember I gave him that bonus back then because it was so impressive what I had seen. But my God, did he take a beating. Never gave up. So toughest guy right there. Insane to watch. Minus 225 for all those reasons I said before. So who am I giving the edge here? I will say on paper, really, if you pay attention, if you look at it on paper, it's really not that close. I mean, Poirier should win because he's got all the experience. He's got all the top level guys that he's either beaten or had close fights with. So he really should win, but he is the underdog. So I don't know. And then BSD is just kind of super dangerous and completely relentless. So who am I giving the edge to on this one? It's another even. Sorry, guys. It's another even one. It's just because we don't really know where Poirier... We kind of don't really know where either guy is at. Is Poirier on just a steep decline after getting knocked out by Gaethje like that? We don't know. And I mean, he was kind of losing the Chandler fight as well. Chandler was like 2 minutes away from probably winning that fight. So tough to tell there. And I honestly, again, thought that Conor was winning the last fight as well. So, is he going downhill or is he just fighting the best of the best and Benoit Saint-Denis isn't? I mean, that is definitely the case, but, it's like Benoit BSD could be as good as we think he is. We just don't know. There's way too many questions on both sides. And this is historically the kind of fight that that Poirier does very well in. So again, it's really too hard to tell on this one. Another even one. I know. I'm giving out a lot of even ones, especially in a row today, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles on this card, I gotta say. But that just really speaks to how good these fights are. That there are a lot of very even, very entertaining fights on this card. So it's not a bad thing, that's for sure. But now we're going to close it out. It's the main event of the evening. It's Sugar Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera, bantamweight title fight. Holy shit, it all leads up to this. Let's start with O'Malley, of course. Oh, and it's the rematch, of course, too. Of course, I gotta mention that as well, of course. The striking is obviously where I need to begin here. Some of the best striking in the UFC. And I've been saying that for years, by the way, that he has always had some of the best striking in the UFC. And it's just been getting better and better. Clearly the best striking in the division. I don't think that's even a question at this point. Yeah. Obviously, that's his main asset here, the striking. Unbelievable accuracy, combos, variety. So kicks, punches, all three levels. Very, very impressive stuff. Very unique, very creative. Likes to throw out a lot of unique feints. Very fun to watch. And very effective as well. Not as much power, per se. Well, I mean, against elite top 15 guys, I mean, you know, clearly he has the power. He has been knocking out quite a few different people. But he hasn't knocked out anybody that's, like, really, really good. But he has been outstriking everybody that's been really, really good. The movement is another clear asset for him. Beautiful movement. Very, very fast. Helps him a lot offensively and defensively. When you're moving that fast and that much, very hard to hit somebody like that clean. So, which is what I'm saying. Very, very good striker. Because if you're hitting them accurately all the time and then not getting a hit because you're too fast, that means you're probably one of the best strikers. So definite asset there. But the durability, I don't want to say he's got a weak chin. I don't want to say that. But just a lot of weird injuries, because he had the, you know, this Andre Sukumtat fight. He had a weird kind of thing going on there. He still won. Then, of course, the Cheeto won the first time, that one. And he never really gets hit that clean, but when he does, you know, he kind of struggles a little bit for, like, you know, 30 seconds a minute. You know, it does throw him off a little bit just because he never really gets hit that clean. So when he does, you know, it's a problem. And Jan did that to him. He got dropped and then clearly lost that round because he never got really up off the ground after that. And he probably would have if it was just a normal takedown, but because he got knocked down onto the ground, just couldn't really get back up too easily like that. So I don't know. The durability, and again, it's a question mark. Maybe people are just reading too much into it. Because again, you know, that I still think the Cheeto win was a kind of a fluke the first time. I really do. Because I don't think that Vera did anything that caused that. I just think he just took a weird step and brutally suffered the consequences for that. So yeah, I don't know if I can really question the durability or not, but I have to write it on there just because it is a definite question. And if you have been kind of having these weird injuries here and there, who's to say that it's not going to happen again in the fight? You know what I mean? It's something you got to address for sure. But he is a minus 275 favor, which is pretty shocking considering Vera did win the first one. On the other side, it's Chito Vera. Huge power, great kicks. I mean, the striking is, his only asset. I mean, that grappling was atrocious. Pretty accurate strikes, lots of variety, punches and kicks. Was getting pieced up early by Sandhagen, though, and we know Sandhagen's very good, but it is definitely something to look out for, that if Sandhagen was doing a lot of early damage like that, you'd imagine that somebody with the striking and movement of Suga could probably do the same thing. The wrestling, though, I just talked about it with, of course, Sandhagen there. Not good. Not good. Not good wrestling at all from Sandhagen. So if Suga was ever gonna be throwing some wrestling in a fight, this would be the one to do it in. Is he gonna do it? I don't know. I mean, there's 5 rounds to work with. I don't think either one of them is going to get... Well, I mean, Cheeto could get another knockout, I guess. I don't think Suga's going to get a knockout, so he's going to have to win the decision somehow. So either he just stays with his his classic striking game. Maybe he does throw in some wrestling, though. We don't know. I'd like to see it. I think it would be smart. And I think he'll test it out. It'll be interesting to see how that goes for him. I really want to know. But yeah, Cheeto, not a wrestler. That is for sure. And the pace. I mean, it's been talked about in every single one of his fights, and I will continue to bring it up. And I've brought it up every single time I've talked about him too. Very, very, very low pace, especially for bantamweight. This would be a low pace even for lightweight or welterweight. Like, it's a very low pace that he keeps. He's really just been winning because he's either getting super late knockouts or he's getting, landing some huge shots that just completely turns around the whole round, which he then steals that round on the cards just because he landed one big shot. That's literally how he's winning these fights. So the pace, though, is like not much at all. Like, really, he's not throwing much at all. So especially when you're going against somebody like Suga, that is a problem. That is definitely a problem, which again is probably why he's a pretty big underdog at plus 210. So who am I giving the edge? It's the main event. So I promised myself and all of you that I will be giving a pick every time I do a main event. And this is obviously no exception. So I'm going to make a pick here, but who is it going to be? It is pretty close, I will say, especially with that weird first fight, because it was even close up until then as well. I will say, though, Cheeto looked pretty much exactly the same. Like, he looks exactly the same as a fighter. Suga, much better. He really is much better now. He moves a lot more. He's a lot faster, feinting a lot more, throwing a lot more. Just really better all around as a striker and more active and just better all around as a striker. And it was noticeable. Like, seriously, go back and watch that and you'll be like, oh, he really didn't look as good back then, even though he was obviously still really good. But that just speaks to how good he is now, that he makes original Suga look like, stevia, like sugar-free. But yeah, terrible joke. I really think it's going to be similar to the last one, though, meaning either Cheeto can get a TKO or maybe land enough power shots to get a decision, or we see Suga outpace him to get a decision himself. That's what I'm seeing here. But ultimately, had to go with O'Malley. He just keeps proving over and over that he's the best striker, and that's kind of what this fight is. Who is the best striker in the bantamweight division? That is what we are going to see. Is it Cheeto or is it Suga? For me, gotta say it's Suga. And by the way, I wouldn't even... Actually, I would even maybe roll that back a little bit because of what I said earlier. I even said that I think Jan is the second best striker. And Suga beat him at striking. So, I mean, if you're beating Jan at striking, I'm pretty sure you can beat Cheeto Vera with striking, as long as you don't get knocked out. So I think he should be able to win this. Yeah, the Suga era continues, hopefully. I am a huge fan, but, obviously no bias here. I do kind of like Vera now a little bit more, but I will admit his style does piss me off because he's just barely throwing anything at all. Which is basically why I'm picking him, because he just doesn't have enough output. But yeah, that's it. UFC 299. That's it. I'm going Suga. The Suga era continues. Let's go. I can't wait to watch. But before we go, of course, we'll give a quick recap of the edge, who I gave the edge in all these. I mean, Almabayev, that's how I'm opening it up. he just seems way better. I mean, he's got the grappling. Vergara doesn't really have it. I'm going Almabayev all the way on this. Despine also, I mean, this is really just because Parisian isn't very good and he gets hit so much. I would imagine somebody with this kind of striking background will be able to knock him out or at least get a shit ton of striking going and win a decision. So I'm going Despine for sure. Cutelaba, gotta go with Iwan on this one just because he's a lot younger and he's very aggressive. I just don't think that Linz can hold up to that kind of insanity. I really don't think he can handle that. Then we've got Michel Pereira. The guy is an absolute maniac, and he's going against... Now I forget. Who was the matchup? Shit. Fuck, we just talked about it too. Oh man, I can't remember who he's fighting. But Michel Pereira should get the win. I can't believe I forgot. That's the first time I've done that in this. Gamrot, for sure. I mean, RDA getting on in years. Gamrot still peak Gamrot. The pace, the grappling. I just think the pace in general is what's going to be the problem for RDA. So he should be able to win this with his pace alone. Then we got Barber. Oh, and O'Malley. Oh my goodness, I messed up the animations on this one, but that's okay. Barber, I just think she's a lot younger. She's a lot more aggressive. She's well-rounded as well. She should be able to beat Sarmanara on this, who is fairly one-dimensional and kind of getting on in age. Then, of course, we have Suga in the main event. I just think he's a much better striker, and he's way better than he was the first time they fought. And I just think Chito Vera kind of just seems like the same guy. He doesn't seem any better than he used to be, so I don't know. I think Suga can do this. And that's it. That's it for the recap. We've got 7 this time. So, I mean, a little bit low, really, for a 14-fight card, but there's a lot of close fights on this card. There's a lot of really good, really close fights, and this is what we have settled on. A good group, though. And that brings us into the best bets. It's the best bets of the week for UFC 299. Let's get right on into it with the parlays. The first one, of course, being the triple play. 3 people that I've given the edge to are put in a group into a parlay, and we reap the rewards. The first fighter is Michel Pereira. He's at minus 163 right now. I thought that was shockingly low, to be honest, for how insane and big Michel Pereira is. I was a little surprised that this was... Oh yeah, Mikhail Aleksejuk. Now I remember who he was fighting. In the last segment, I forgot who he was fighting. Oh my goodness. Now I remember Mikhail Aleksejuk. I just think Michel Pereira is just way better and way too much for Mikhail Aleksejuk in this one. Minus 163. Fantastic odds there. Next up, it's Mateusz the Gamer Gamrot. Minus 450. I believe he might actually be... Ooh, actually, no. I think he's the second biggest favorite on the card behind Almabayev. But yeah, I mean, RDA, again, I said this earlier, he's going downhill a little bit. Gamrot, still peak Gamrot. He's got the pace. I just think it's going to be a little too much for RDA. Then we've got, to round it out, the Hulk. It's Iwan Cutelaba. Minus 150. So this is actually these are very good odds for parlays. I love this. Minus 150. We love it. You add that all together. Oh, and by the way, of course, that's because Lynn's getting older. I just don't think that he can handle the pressure and the insanity that is Iwan Cutelaba. You add that all together. Michel Pereira, Mateusz Gamrot, Iwan Cutelaba, and you get plus 229. Fantastic odds for a parlay. Love that. And as always, we put, why did that not show up with my button? 1 unit on that. We always put a single unit on the triple play. Next up, the Grand Slam. That's, of course, where we give out 4 fighters. Well, we put 4 fighters into the parlay. Why do I always fuck up how I say that? We put 4 fighters into the parlay there for the Grand Slam. And you would be shocked to know that we have even better profit, well, profit in general, with the Grand Slam, less so for the triple play. So we actually usually do better on the Grand Slam. And we will jump into that right now. It will open up with Asu Almabayev, minus 450 right now. Hey, we got somebody in the chat. Yo, Grinza. What's up? We're continuing, though. Minus 450, Almabayev. That's the first leg. Again, I don't think Vergara has the grappling to deal with that. Pineda, again. Again, just think he's much better than Mikhail Aleksejic on this one. Minus 163, fantastic odds. We love that. Moving on again to Despine. Minus 334. Josh Parisian just really isn't that good. So I really think that the striking here is going to be way too much for him to deal with. And we're probably going to see an early finish. I think. I hope anyway. Knock on wood, obviously. Next up, to round out the Grand Slam, it's Macy Barber, minus 200. I'm a little more worried about this one, but I just think, again, she's a lot younger. She's more well-rounded. She's got the pace. She's super aggressive. You know, Saramanara, formerly Shukagian, kind of on the way out, fairly one-dimensional. I just think Barber can get it done, and she's at minus 200 right now. You add all those together, we've got Almabayev, Pereira, Despine, Barber. That gives us the odds of plus 285. Looking good, looking good. And for the Grand Slam, we always put down half a unit for the Grand Slam. Moving on to the last 2 bets. It's the top dog. That's our most profitable bet all the time. Top dog. Who is the best underdog of the week? It's Pedro Munoz. I gotta go with Pedro Munoz. I did say this was even earlier, which I mean I usually do when I'm gonna be picking an underdog. But for this one, it's because Kyler Phillips kind of has a lower pace. He's good, but he does have a lower pace. Pedro Munoz, the opposite of that. He is very fast and has a very, very high pace for activity with the striking and everything. He's super well-rounded. This is definitely an occasion where we could see... Actually, this might be one of our best underdogs to cash in. Plus 175. I've got a good feeling about it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying this is one of those ones that we have a very good chance of winning. I wonder if you agree, if you want to leave something in the chat there. But yeah, I'm picking plus 175 Pedro Munoz. I like the odds on that. I mean, those are great odds for that, because I think it should be at least even. Minus 120, minus 130 or something. But yeah. And as always, we've got 1 unit on Pedro Munoz. Finally, the last bet of the evening. It's the sniper pick, which took a little bit of a dip last week after Basharat completely fucking blew that. But I'm still going to drop that. A little bit higher up now, minus 500, minus 550, somewhere around there. I got him at minus 450, though. He is just kind of one of those guys. I think he was 18-1 or something like that. Super, super consistent. The style matchup is terrible for CJ Vergara. He even has the edge. Hey, you got Munoz as well. That is great to hear, Grenza. I love to hear that. That makes me feel a lot better. That is great. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Asu Almabayev, the style. But also, yeah, right. He had the debut against Ode Osborne. He won to win 2 units and go up with a big profit on the night. And that's it. Those are all the bets. Those are all the picks. That is it for me. We will go back to my desk here. Where are we here? We're back in studio. Look at that. That's much better. Yeah, I mean, what fights are you guys looking forward to the most? I honestly can't even tell at this point. I think my number one still has to be Saint Denis and Poirier, but after that, there's so many insane fights. The entire card, obviously the best card of the year up until this point. I hope it ends up being the best card up until this point. Can't wait to watch. Hold on. Just needed a sip there. But yeah, I did mention this earlier in the show. Kind of sad way to end the show. But this is actually going to be, sorry for the people that just discovered me here. But, oh yeah, Poirier, BSD. Yeah, fight tonight. Oh, yes. To me, it reminds me of the Chandler fight with Poirier. That's what it reminds me of, because Chandler fights a lot like BSD fights a lot like Chandler. So I think we're going to be seeing something absolutely insane like that. But anyway, super sad moment though. And like I said, sad for the people that just discovered me here. But this is actually going to be my last stream probably for the entire year. I've been making a video game for the phones. It's actually an MMA game, so stay tuned for that as well, for sure. But yeah, and I just really want to focus more so on making the game, because I know that that's going to be somewhere where I can make money, and it's going to be really fucking good, the game. I'm super excited with how the game is turning out so far. So I just want to dedicate all my time to that, and I spend so much time doing all these bets and all the work for the bets. I don't want to take time away from the video game anymore. So until the video game comes out, I won't be doing this anymore, sadly. And it is sad for me, because I do enjoy doing this. Yeah, I know, shame you just found, I know. But I mean, I don't know if you can tell by the numbers on the channel, I just haven't been having too many viewers or anything. So it's kind of like, I love doing this, and I love talking to people and doing this, well, just all around. I love every single part of this, but it just takes up way too much time, and I really, really gotta work on the game. So I'm just hoping that, when the game comes out, people will love it, and then they'll be like, oh, who's this blue guy in the game, and who made that, and then I'll get somewhat of a slightly bigger audience, and then I can come back and do some more, MMA chat like this, and do some more betting stuff, and do some more streams. That's my hope. So, yeah. So, yeah, probably not for the rest of the year. Hopefully, maybe around this time next year is when I'll be able to come back. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. But yeah. I guess that's it. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, I mean, nice talking to you, Grenza, though. Hopefully you enjoyed the only 20 minutes you're probably ever going to see of live content, unless you remember me and come back later. But look out for Blue FC on the App Store at some point later this year. If you ever hear the name Blue FC and you see Bluebeard in the game, that's this guy. Come back next year. Hopefully you come back. But that's it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. I had a great time the last 3 years or so doing this whole thing. But yeah, that's it for me. Oh, thank you. I hope you do watch out, because I'm so excited for this game. It really does look super cool. And if you love MMA, it's going to be an amazing game for you, because it's not just MMA. It's not like the UFC games where it's just like that. I'm adding in kickboxing, mini games in it, boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. We're going to focus on all the different things. I'm going to be putting people in there from around the world, you know, not just focusing on, because obviously I can't use real fighters. I'm going to be making people from everywhere. I'm going to try and get somebody in there from FC. That will be below on my social media on Instagram. Thank you for watching. I will hopefully see you guys again. If not, I will see you on your phone, hopefully, in Blue FC.